thrill seeker? Well, strap yourself in, because we're going on a wild ride with animal adrenaline junkies. We're counting down the top 10 most extreme daredevils in the natural world and comparing them to our own attempts at death-defying feats. It's time for a do-or-die effort when daredevils take it to the most extreme.
Earth is a planet of extremes. Extreme places. And extreme animals. But some animals are more extreme than others. Join us as we count down to find the most unusual and the most extraordinary on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Number 10.
For some people, everyday life is just a little boring. So to break the monotony, they jump out of airplanes. Others love climbing up mountains or falling down them. In the last decade, these extreme sports have become extremely popular. But what's the attraction of these thrills and spills? Some researchers believe that human daredevils are addicted to adrenaline. This natural chemical high can turn putting your body at risk into a real rush. Adrenaline junkies say that surviving something dangerous gives them an overwhelming feeling of peace that can last for several days. Perhaps that's why a recent survey found that human daredevils log fewer sick days than their quieter colleagues. But things are very different in the natural world. Animals put their lives on the line every day, not for fun, but for survival. Our first contender thinks nothing of climbing sheer cliffs. Yet for human adrenaline junkies, even with safety equipment, it can be a risky business. If only we had the extreme climbing abilities of the gecko. This tiny lizard is number 10 in our countdown of extreme daredevils because it can cling to surfaces too risky for any human climber. It can dash up a smoothly polished glass surface as easily as we can fall off a log, sticking and unsticking its feet 15 times a second. Unlike other climbing animals, it has no need for suction cups, Velcro hooks, or sticky secretions. Gecko feet are truly extreme. Imagine if you had feet like a gecko. Walking up the wall would be no trouble with gecko feet. If you take a close look, you'd see your feet were covered in tiny ridges. Use a microscope and you'd see each ridge was coated with what looked like tiny scales, but are actually more than 150,000 tiny hairs, the ends of which are only a few millionths of an inch wide. That's small enough to interact with the molecular structure of the surface, which is why geckos can stick to anything. The gecko is number 10 in the countdown because no other animal can match its gravity-defying stunts. Thanks to its incredible toes, the gecko can cling upside down in a vacuum, something that even flies can't match. All this incredible climbing power means no bug is safe. Human daredevils may not be able to run up walls like geckos, but some human flies have been thrilling crowds with their ability to climb the tallest buildings.
This chap got so good at scaling buildings, he tried it blindfolded. While the crowd gasped, he scrambled up the sheer face of a 14-story structure entirely by his sense of feel.
But that's nothing for a gecko. This lizard could scale any building blindfolded with one leg tied behind its back. Because when it comes to extreme climbing, the gecko has got all other contenders licked.
Number 9.
In the jungles of South America, our next contender may not be as agile as a gecko, but this is one daredevil that spends its life upside down, hanging by its fingernails. Coming in at number 9 in the countdown is the sloth. Hanging around in trees may look easy, but there's a reason why human torturers used to suspend their victims upside down. Unlike a sloth, our body isn't used to pumping blood down to the head. That's why if you stay inverted for too long, you get extreme pain, hemorrhages, and even fatal aneurysms. But the sloth takes it all in its stride. Its very slow stride. We may think it's extreme, but for a sloth, living upside down is perfectly normal. Its internal organs are all permanently inverted. In fact, it's so good at hanging on to a tightrope that it can no longer walk erect on the ground. And that can be a bit of a problem, because sometimes the vines and creepers of the jungle are not as well designed as the sloth. Luckily, the sloth is an excellent swimmer. The sloth is number 9 in the countdown because it's not easy being a daredevil when your world keeps crashing down around your ears. Making a splash on the high wire is a risky business for both sloths and humans. How would you like to be suspended 400 feet above Tampa, Florida, with only a half-inch metal wire between you and the ground? Well, it's no trouble for the Prince of Air, Jay Cochran. He may not have the specialized claws of the sloth, but Jay has a different trick to stay on the rope. By holding on to that enormous pole, his center of gravity is lowered from his waist to his toes, making it much harder to fall off. For the sloth, falling off the high wire isn't a problem. It's having to climb all the way back up again that can prove to be difficult for the slowest daredevil in the countdown.
We've climbed all over the first 2 contenders in our countdown of extreme daredevilry. But still to come is an animal that tells its babies to go jump off a cliff. And even Tarzan would be proud of the swinger that's coming up next on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Number 8.
If you're aiming to find the next contender in our countdown of extreme daredevils, you better shoot for the stars. Climbing in at number 8 is an animal that has no safety gear, yet it lives in trees as tall as a 10-story building. At these heights, one slip can be fatal. But that doesn't seem to worry the animal that's swinging in to number 8 in the countdown. The orangutan. The orangutan is the largest animal in the world to live in the trees. An adult male can weigh as much as an adult human, but the orang is 4 times stronger. It needs all that strength to hang on to the branches high above the ground. It also has flexible hip joints and hand-like feet to help it swing through the trees with the greatest of ease. The orangutan is number 8 in the countdown because it's not easy being this big, this high in the forest. Analysis of orang skeletons revealed that 7 out of 10 adults had at some time in their life broken an arm or a leg. And it's not hard to see why. These daredevils take some extraordinary risks. But even orangutans might be horrified by the antics of a human swinger.
Daredevil Ben Mouton, whose specialty is stunting, decides to give the folks a real thrill. So he hangs a trapeze over the side of the bridge, where a slip would mean certain death, and he wouldn't give up the opportunity of risking his neck for anybody. It takes a lot to amuse some people, but Ben enjoys it. His life is just one big thrill after another.
Life can also be thrilling for orangutans as they swing through the jungle on their precarious trapeze. So why do orangs risk their lives by going out on a limb? The answer is that if they want to eat, they need to swing because their fruity diet is found high in the trees. But there is another reason. The forest floor is just as dangerous as the canopy. This is tiger country. We may think the orang's aerial antics are risky, but then if we drop our lunch on the ground, we don't have to worry about becoming the main course for a hungry tiger.
So far, we've tried to swing with an ape, hang out with a sloth, and climb with a gecko. But coming up is an animal that uses its stomach to take to the air. That's next on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Number 7.
The next contender in our countdown of extreme daredevils has developed an extreme way of moving through the rainforests of Asia. Traveling with no arms and no legs can be a real challenge, but the tree snake makes it look easy. It can climb vertical surfaces by pushing against the rough edges of bark with the ridged scales along its belly. But climbing trees is hard work, so one snake has found a way to save energy. It's a much easier way to travel, if you're brave enough. It takes guts to jump from the top of a tree, especially when you use your stomach to fly. The tree snake sucks in its guts to form a concave surface that acts like a parachute. The so-called flying snakes of Asia don't really fly, but glide. And they don't really land, but crash. It's an extraordinary leap of faith for an animal with no wings. Imagine if you could belly flop like a flying snake. How would you like to be able to glide 100 times your body length? That could be well over 500 feet, or the length of not one, but 2 jumbo jets. Today, it is possible to fly like a snake. Chuck Berry from New Zealand is your typical adrenaline junkie. Chuck and his friends have been jumping out of planes for years, but falling straight down is boring. Chuck dreamed of gliding like a flying snake. So Chuck found a suit that turned his body into a wing. Just like a flying snake's belly, the wing's concave surfaces catch the air and provide forward momentum. For every mile of descent, Chuck glides 2.5 miles forward. Using this suit, Chuck became the first person to fly across a country. In 2003, he flew from one coast in New Zealand to the other. Fortunately, Chuck doesn't have to land like a flying snake. Not even the most extreme human daredevil can match the flying snake. After all, how would you like to fall from a 10-story building and land on your belly?
Number 6.
Some daredevils have no fear of flying. It's the landings they should be worried about. Controlled crash landings can be risky, but there are other things in the sky that are deadlier. These weapons belong to a daredevil killer, the eagle. When monkeys are on the menu, an eagle has to perform some serious stunts. The African crowned eagle can kill prey 4 times its own weight. It's number 6 in the countdown because it risks life and limb when it deliberately flies into the dense forest canopy in search of a meal. Getting lunch may be dangerous, but for eagles, maintaining a territory means laying your body on the line. Eagles are number 6 in the countdown because of the extreme risks they take when the testosterone starts surging. These male African sea eagles lock talent in a risky game of chicken. Sometimes eagles refuse to let go and hit the ground hard. The impact can be fatal. One naturalist saw a stubborn pair of eagles crash land and hang upside down in a tree for 12 hours before they could be persuaded to let go of each other's talons. It's an extreme way of finding out which bird has the right stuff. If you want to find out if you've got what it takes to fly like an eagle, simply sign up for a ride with aerobatic instructor Tom Richard at Warbird Adventures out of Kissimmee, Florida.
It's okay to walk on the furniture in this house. All right, welcome to your new office. So first thing we're going to do here is put your parachute on. Have you ever skydived?
Yeah, I have. A couple of times.
Very good. Now, got you into this mess, I'm going to teach you how to get out of it. If I, for any reason, yell or say, bail out, bail out, bail out, that means it's time to go. Now, don't ask any questions at that time since I just left. The parachute will open automatically. And of course, if it doesn't open, just bring it back. We got a few more in the shed, so you just pick a different color, all right?
An aerobatics pilot must possess both skill and physiological stamina, for unlike eagles, humans are not well designed for the stresses of flying. The pilot has to understand the limitations of both the aircraft and the human body, because when he's in the air, Tom really knows how to turn your world upside down.
Here comes the fun stuff. Here we go. I pull up and we'll do one to the left, neutralize and roll. Like that. Okay, we're looking for a loop now, so tighten up your stomach muscles. Here comes 3.5 G's. Look at your wingtips. There you go. Keep your head up right now. Don't let it fall back again. Here we go. Relax over the top, and then we simply start pulling again. Keep looking at the wingtip. Should have a pretty good view of that one. Yeah. How's that for intense?
Intense feelings are common when your body gets hit with G-forces. When you're flying straight and level, the force of gravity causes your body to have a certain weight. But when you come out of a dive, as the plane changes direction, your body keeps moving in the opposite direction. So a pilot actually weighs 4 times more than usual when he pulls 4 Gs. The main effect of G-forces is on the flow of blood. When pulling out of a dive, the G-forces push the blood to the lower part of the body, reduce the flow of blood to your eyes and brain, and you'll first lose your vision and then your consciousness. Not a good thing to happen in an airplane. Regular exposure to G-forces may improve human pilots' tolerance for extreme aerobatics, but there's still no match for the death-defying stunts of the Eagle.
It seems that some males will do the craziest things to impress the girl. But coming up, brace yourself for an animal that blasts off like a living cannonball. And what high-flying animal would deliberately crash into the water at 40 miles an hour? Find out next on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Number 5.
Flying high above the coasts of the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans is the 5th contender in our countdown of extreme daredevils. The brown pelican loves fish. The only problem is how to get them. The simplest method is to land on the water and lunge at the fish beneath. But to catch those fish just out of reach requires a more extreme hunting technique. Pelicans dive from more than twice the height of an Olympic high diver. By the time they hit the water, they're traveling at 40 miles an hour and hit the sea with such force that they stun fish 6 feet below the surface. To survive this high-speed crash, the pelican folds back its wings and inflates special air sacs under its skin to absorb the shock. But Daredevil divers come in all shapes and sizes. Kim Kahana trains people in the art of stunt performance at his school in Florida.
Hit the mat. Yell out what you're going to do. Working. Close. Ready. You can't make a mistake in high falls. If you make a mistake, it's a disaster. You could either get hurt, paralyzed, or you could get killed. When the man comes in and jumps on this trampoline, the special effects man has to ignite it exactly when you're coming up, not when you're in midair going down. Because if you're in midair going down, the explosion will catch you.
So that's why Kim ensures his students get a solid grounding in stunt safety. And all that training comes in handy when the action really starts to heat up. Even with all the safety precautions, no one said it's easy learning to be a daredevil. The pelican may be a natural stunt performer, but the daredevil coming up next in the countdown makes an even bigger impact.
Number 4.
In England, some daredevils play cricket on a Sunday afternoon, which can be bad news for a click beetle. That crash landing was nothing for a click beetle. It survives far worse every time it tries to get back on its feet. The click beetle is number 4 in the countdown because it endures more G-forces than any other animal on the planet. Using a hinge on its wing cases to store energy, it arches its body and with a loud click, it fires itself into the air. It can hit up to 400 Gs. That's 80 times more than your average human cannonball. Of the 50 human cannonballs in history, 30 have been killed, mostly by missing the net. At liftoff, human cannonballs experience only 1% of the force generated by a click beetle. But that's enough to shoot them over 200 feet at speeds of more than 65 miles per hour. One human cannonball described his job as being no more dangerous than shaving with a chainsaw. If only human cannonballs were as well protected as the click beetle. They have an armor-plated exoskeleton that means that this is one daredevil that never needs a safety net.
So far, we've survived smashes with beetles, splashes with pelicans, and crashes with eagles. But coming up is an animal that thrives in water so cold it can kill a human in minutes. That's next on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Number 3.
To find the next extreme daredevil in the countdown, you have to head south for the winter. A long way south. This is Antarctica, and these freezing waters are home to the Weddell seal. No other mammal lives further south than this extraordinary seal. Underwater, the average temperature is a balmy 33 degrees. But thanks to their thick layer of blubber, Weddell seals don't have to worry about the cold. Their biggest problem is keeping their breathing holes from freezing shut. That's why Weddell seals use their teeth to scrape away the ice. Lose your teeth, and you lose your life in this frozen world. And to make sure that they don't lose the location of their breathing hole, Weddell seals use a type of sonar. By listening for the echoes of these strange calls, a seal can find its way back to a breathing hole after being underwater for over an hour. They can dive down over 2,000 feet, where the pressure is so intense that it collapses their lungs. That would be bad news for a human, but it's no problem for these seals. They don't need lungs because they carry twice the amount of oxygen in their blood and muscles as humans. Seals are much more at home in this icy blackness than even the most extreme human daredevil. Dive into these waters without protective clothing, and acute hypothermia would kill you in less than 5 minutes. Even in dry suits, divers limit their swim to around 40 minutes. How would you like to go diving in water so cold that you risk your breathing apparatus freezing solid? Even with all this protective gear, divers still suffer from the ultimate ice cream headache. But in the frozen world of Antarctica, it can actually be warmer in the water than out of it. That's why a baby Weddell seal gets its first swimming lesson when it's less than a week old. With air temperatures regularly dropping below minus 40 degrees, it's actually much warmer in the water.
Number 2.
Welcome to the Himalayas, the highest mountains on Earth. On average, a mountaineer will die on every 5th expedition to this cruel land. Yet this is home to the animals that are number 2 in the countdown. The Tibetan Baral is a mountain sheep that lives life on the edge. When you live above 14,000 feet in these mountains, one slip can be fatal. Baral survive up here because they're superb climbers. Their hooves are flexible and rubbery to maximize their gripping potential. Yet even these extreme mountaineers have a high-risk lifestyle. In fact, only half of the Baral born each year survive to their first birthday. Baral are number 2 in the countdown because for these daredevils, it's still safer up on these cliffs than down on the flats where there are predators like leopards. After all, you'd have to be crazy to try and climb up here. There's a good reason why mountaineering is considered a daredevil sport. One study in New Zealand showed that mountaineers are 5,000 times more likely to die compared to office workers. Above 16,000 feet, the temperature is usually below 0 degrees. You're breathing 4 times faster than normal, and still, there's something else that can strike without warning. In some places, more mountain goats are killed by avalanches and rockfall than are caught by predators. But living in such an extreme environment doesn't seem to worry these daredevils. Baral are so confident in their ability to survive that, as a part of the mating ritual, males try to knock each other off the cliff. Testosterone can make daredevils do extraordinary things. But our final contender is pushed to the limit by its mother.
We've seen the 9 contenders. They're the bravest of the brave. Only one animal is a more extreme daredevil. It's number 1, and it's coming up next on Animal Planet's The Most. Number 1.
So far in our countdown of extreme daredevils, all our contenders have some things in common. They're all highly trained, supremely fit, and fully grown adults. Nobody would let a baby attempt these extreme stunts, except for the animal that's number 1 in the countdown. The baby barnacle goose. It can't fly, it can barely walk, and yet in just 3 days, this newly hatched chick will take on a challenge beyond any adult human. Barnacle geese nest at the top of high cliffs in the Arctic, far away from hungry predators. The only problem is that it's also a long way from their food supply, about 300 feet, straight down. People used to think that mom and dad took their chicks down to the feeding grounds on their backs. But the truth is even more unbelievable. The baby barnacle goose is number 1 in the countdown because it just steps off the cliff and falls. The chicks have nothing more than a fluffy down coat to absorb the awful impact. That's why they have only a 50% chance of walking away unharmed. This family was lucky. All the chicks survived a fall that would be most people's worst nightmare. Yet some adrenaline junkies actually dream about living life like a baby barnacle goose, according to Los Angeles Daredevil Anne Helliwell.
Have you ever stood on the edge of a curb and thought, oh, wouldn't it be nice if I could just fly? You know, just go over there. The people that are scared of heights don't get this feeling, but sometimes you stand on an edge or on top of a building and you go, oh, wouldn't it be nice if I could just fly out there like a bird? Well, we can, we do, and it's so exhilarating.
This is base jumping, considered by many to be the most extreme sport in the world. In the US alone in the last 20 years, there's been a reported 20 people killed in base jumping related accidents and many more severely injured. Unlike normal skydiving, you have no reserve parachute. If your rig doesn't open, there just isn't enough time to try again.
Other people perceive us as crazy. They often tell us we're crazy, but I don't think I'm crazy. We are very conscious of everything we're doing. We're very safe. A lot of people think we have a death wish, but it's the total opposite to that. We have a life wish. We're out there having a real good time and we don't want to die. Yes, it's a high-risk sport. A lot of people don't want to take that gamble. We're happy to do so. We know ourselves, our gear and the sport, and we're happy to take that risk.
Anne is co-owner of Basic Research, a company that designs and manufactures parachutes for base jumpers around the world. She also runs classes, teaching people how to experience the thrills of jumping off a cliff.
I totally love it. I continue to love the sport, and I don't think I could ever give that up, launching my body off into free fall. It's just beautiful.
But not even the most extreme base jumper on Earth would fall like a barnacle goose. The baby barnacle goose has no parachute, no wings, and no fear. Which is why, when it comes to being a daredevil, it's no wonder that the barnacle goose really is the most extreme.
Up next on King of the Jungle.
This is not a challenge for wussies.
The competitors tackle their most brutal challenge yet.
This is